Pastor Rich here. Welcome to Walking Ministries Online. Now, today I'm going to talk about signs, wonders, and visions. Okay, but before I get into those specifics, I have to start out with my first spiritual awakening about God. Okay, so here goes. My first experience of God happened when I was 17 years old. It was out of desperation why I began seeking Him. My knowledge of God up until this point in my life was the movie The Ten Commandments and Jesus of Nazareth. After watching Jesus of Nazareth, I was immediately drawn to Him, but after a few days, out of sight, out of mind, no root, like the parable of the sower. I was the one sown on rocky ground. If you notice, when I preach, I'm slightly cryptic because I want to give you a slight overview, but encourage you to research the scriptures yourself. And that's what I'm referring to is in Matthew chapter 13, verse 19 to 23. Okay, despair. Okay, my father, the businessman, made a deal with someone and was paid his share, which he immediately invested. The deal he was paid for fell through and was asked to return the money, which he was unable to do. As a result of his arrest at home and taken to jail, 2 days had passed without my dad at home, so I went to the police station to see if I could find out what was going on. Once I found out he was there, I asked the guard if I could get him something to eat, and he said I could. So after I returned with some food, the officer said I could go into him, but I would have to leave after he was done eating. The cell looked like a row of dog kennels. That's what it looked like. With steel bars, with my dad sitting on the floor, leaning on the wall, looking straight at me as I approached. And it was all made of just concrete. There's no stool or you sat the shape of a bed or a ledge. A where he was sitting. Anyway, I felt as if I was stabbed in the heart with a spoon and then having the center scooped out like a watermelon, to give you the visual. But I held back my tears to not have him worry about me. He is assuring me he's okay, so I don't worry about him. I gave him the food and watched him eat it. We didn't really talk, and I left after he was done eating and thanked the guard on my way out. Neither of us wanted to break down in front of the other. Okay? Now, remember, up until this time, I didn't know God on a personal level, apart from just hearing the word God and seeing through shows or movies. Now, so as a result of that, this is now my first prayer, first time I've ever prayed at 17 in high school. I believe this was the first time I prayed. I'm not 100% sure, but I have no memory before this night of praying, except bedtime prayers, the old Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which is just a recital, basically. I was overcome with a feeling of emptiness, loneliness, helplessness, and a broken heart beyond repair. At least that's what it felt like. I had nowhere to turn. Why does God let all these things happen? You see, if certain things, God don't allow them to happen, then there would be no reason to seek Him. Tears had been running down the side of my face as I laid in my bed thinking of my dad. Suddenly I remembered the movie Jesus of Nazareth. And when Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And that's in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. I was hurting so bad I thought, what do I have to lose? I said, God, I don't know if you are there or not, but if you are, and you answer my prayer, I promise I will follow you and live by your commandments. I tell you what, be careful when you make a promise to God. Let me explain something before I continue my prayer. Being the son of a businessman, I was able to drive to school and then hand over the car to Dad. Of course, in front of all the students, which gave me extra points with the girls. So, because of this social status, I use it selfishly to my advantage to fornicate with the young women that wanted to know me. Now, back to the prayer. I said, according to your word, to have intimate relations outside of marriage is a sin. Hence, my revelation of school fornication. Okay, so I will stop my fornication, but that is something I should be doing for my own benefit, to not sin against you, and I will no longer shoot birds with my slingshot, since it's not for the sake of eating it. And I'll also stop boasting that I'm a sniper with my slingshot, and I will change my life and follow you, Lord. Me doing these things is not a sacrifice, it's turning away from sin. Remember, I wrote this at 17, and that's what I was doing back then. Okay, God, I think I need to make a sacrifice to prove to you that I'll change, but I'm only 17 years old. I don't have a son that you can test me like you did Abraham. I don't have anything of value, I said to God. The only thing I can think of is Tracy. You have to revert to earlier sermons. You are the only one who knows how much she means to me. I will give her up for you if you are there and you answer my prayer. See, that's my cause. Anyway, Tracy was my girlfriend, yes. While I was fornicating with other young women, being selfish, I cared about them, but I was not in love with them. Now, Tracy, on the other hand, just being around her took my breath away. I tell you that what I felt for her, I have only felt being with her, and it is difficult to describe. In my eyes, Tracy was perfect and could do no wrong. Being around her, I felt complete. She was the most precious thing in the world to me. I know she felt the same way about me. To know that she felt the same way about me was the perfect gift that anyone could wish for. Now my sacrifice. God, I will give up Tracy as my sacrifice to you and change my life and follow you if you return my dad. This was what I was praying. Okay? Now, I did not think of it back then when I was 17, but when Cain and Abel offered their sacrifice to God, Cain gave produce, but it was not accepted because it was not the best of his yield. And Abel gave of his livestock the best, healthy and unblemished, and was accepted by God. Like Abel, my sacrifice, Tracy, was still pure and unblemished. I loved her so much, all we did was hug when we came together and when we parted. We held hands a few times and said about 15 goodbyes back and forth before we parted. Okay, now my dream. After this prayer, I made this prayer the same night. The offer to God, and then this was exactly what happened after my prayer when I fell asleep. Okay, that night after praying, I laid there crying until I eventually fell asleep. I then had a dream that I was in a small room, white ceiling, with front, left, and right walls, but I couldn't make out any lines in the walls. Everything was white as snow. Then it started to snow, and at the same time, what looked like soap bubbles was rising from the bottom of the room until it covered my head, and then the dream ended. So I was engulfed in this soap sud, like washing machine bubbles rising from the bottom, and snow falling on top of me, and everything was white, and then it just went, black from there. Okay, now my answer. I have no idea what hour it was, except that it was early morning while still dark. My bedroom door opened and a voice said, Don't get up. I just wanted to let you know that I'm home. Go back to sleep." Then the door closed. The voice was my dad. I burst out into tears and thanking God over and over, once again crying myself to sleep, only this time it was bittersweet. Well, bittersweet because I gave up Tracy, who I love so much, but I also love my dad. Bittersweet. Okay, now, as a result of that, now following God, okay, I kept my end of the deal and turned away from my sins of fornicating and killing God's creatures for sport. I got hold of a red letter Bible. It's a Bible with all of Jesus' saying printed in red ink. I studied the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, over and over. I was doing now what Jesus had commanded and was no longer living in sin. My best friend Patrick told me he knows I'm doing the right thing, changing my life for Jesus, but that he himself wasn't ready for such a change. I said, as a result of his decision, the friendship between us would not remain the same. He said he understood, and with those words we parted. All right, now Bible knowledge. I was not a churchgoer. All I had was a Bible to read as much as I could, due to the lack of guidance and understanding at the time. I was troubled by the killings which occurred by the hand of God in the Old Testament. If humans were biological cells and the earth was the body, some would be good cells and the rest would be cancer cells. If the good cells overpowered the cancer cells, the earth or /body would be healthy and live. On the other hand, if the cancer cells contaminated the good cells with corruption and earthly pollution, the body/earth would perish along with humans. So in my mind, to make sense of it all, I thought of God as a doctor removing cancer cells before they consume the entire body/earth. Okay, now the New Testament, on the other hand, was about love. Well, both parts are, but I didn't realize that at the time. Commandment number 1, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Wow. Jesus said there is another like it. You must love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, now, how do we do that? How do I show God that I love him? At the time I was afraid of God. I was afraid of the God of the Old Testament. I had just started a relationship with him, and following Jesus' commandments, I found the answer in Jesus' words. Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Love one another as I have loved you. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. Jesus' disciples said to him, Lord, when did we see you under these circumstances and cater to you? I paraphrased. Jesus replied, inasmuch as you have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you have done it to me. That's in the Gospel of Matthew. You have to research that on your own. Now, I'm going to pause here, and then the next part I will be letting you know about my vision and experience of God. I want to keep it short. This way, the videos won't be too long. Okay, so I'm going to refer to this as part 1 of my spiritual awakening. Okay, of signs, visions, and wonders. Okay, this is Pastor Rich, and I will see you and continue this in part 2 of signs and wonders and visions of my spiritual awakening. See you shortly.